Hey guys, welcome to Digit.in. Today we have with us the Dell G7. This is the newest gaming laptop from Dell in their 15-inch series, and it's quite something. I was actually not very confident that this machine would live up to a certain of my expectations, but Dell shared this laptop with us. I took it with me to Computex, took it for a few other trips where I relied on it solely for writing stories, editing photos, and even putting together, and editing some video clips. So here's, of course, this review with our standardized testing process and a few other observations that I've had carrying this laptop around with me on multiple international trips. So let's begin. Let's first start with the built-in design of the Dell G7. It's all black, it's very sleek. The hinge is beautiful, it's sturdy. What's really interesting is this design that they've got where the bottom part of the laptop has chiseled edges inside of it. So they feel like vents, they feel like fins. Think of it like a CPU radiator of sorts. It's a pretty interesting design, but the air vents are actually flowing and taking in air only from the side and the back. So the front is actually not pulling in any air, but it does look pretty cool. Overall, the laptop is just about an inch thick. What really did stand out was the weight, which is almost 2.5 kilograms. Now its closest competitor, which is the Asus Strix Scar 2, which weighs about 2.4 kilograms. So it's 100 grams lighter, but it is also thicker. So there's that trade-off, So the Dell is heavier, and that is because it's got an all-metal build. So the lid has a thin sheet of aluminum, but the base is all solid metal. Very, very sturdy. Inside all of this sits a keyboard, which unfortunately is not an RGB keyboard. Something at this price that I would expect would be included. It's lit with blue LEDs only, and the display is a 1080p IPS panel with 144 Hz refresh rate. So pretty beefy. Powering all of this is the Intel i7 8750H paired with an NVIDIA RTX 2060. Now this is an impressive combination in of itself. Complementing it is 16 GB of RAM and of course a 256 GB SSD along with a 1 TB hard drive. Now the SSD helps make sure the system is booting up fast, applications are loading fast, but the 1 TB makes sure that that's where you can store all of your games if need be. Now let's talk performance. For our review process, we loaded all of the games from the SSD. We did not use the hard drive, so it was pretty painful, installing 2 games at a time, running them, benchmarking them, uninstall. So yeah, that's the kind of headache you'll have to go to if you want the absolute best performance. Now in our testing, we found that the Dell G7, and in comparison to the Asus Strix Scar 2, which also has the i7 and the RTX 2060 GPU and 16 GB of RAM and the 256 GB of NVMe drive and a 1 TB. So internally, they're both the same. The performance actually varied by just 1 or 2 frames here and there. It was not a very marked difference. In some games, the Dell was better, and in some, it was the Asus. So for example, I'm just going to read off some of the numbers for you, and this is actually not surprising at all. We do expect that because of thermal limitations, sometimes because of how hot the system may have been running or the ambient temperature, sometimes frame rates can vary. So just to give you, a hint of what kind of performance we were looking at, we saw, for example, Apex Legends, which is a very popular title right now, run at about, 106 frames per second at the ultra setting. So that's the highest setting that the game has to offer. Graphical setting that was running at 106. One of my favorite games, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, ran at 90 FPS at its highest setting, and Doom, another one of my favorite titles, ran at 98 frames per second. And just for reference, Metro Exodus at its ultra setting ran at 46 frames per second. Now Metro is known to kind of bring most gaming system to its knees, and that's kind of what we saw here as well. 46 at the highest setting, playable frame rates, but you've got a 144 Hz display, so that's kind of not going it. In case you're wondering, Battlefield 5 played at about 58 frames per second, again in the highest setting. Dropping that down to one below, let's call it a high graphics setting, which is one below the highest, we saw frame rates jump about 15 to 20%, where Doom started playing at 112 FPS, Battlefield 5 jumped up to 70 FPS, And yeah, so it's pretty comparable with what we saw on the Asus. So in terms of the performance, they're very much at par with each other. Where the Dell loses points is in the shallow keyboard, which has not a very good feedback. The keys feel a little spongy, and the lack of an RGB keyboard, which the Asus offers. The Asus also offers a far better travel and a much snappier response on the keys. So there is that. Secondly, it was interesting to note that at idle loads, the Dell did not really generate a lot of noise. It stayed at about 26 decibels, but once it was under load, we looked at a rather loud system, which is about generating 58 decibels of noise. In addition to that, the temperatures at idle were again fairly cool, not a problem, but when any game was being played for that matter, or when the system was under stress, temperatures shot up noticeably, with the WASD keys getting as hot as about 42 degrees. That is again like a personal thing. There's a lot of people who've said that the keys don't feel really all that hot. Personally, to me, they felt warm. So you may have a different preference. Just touch something out there that's 42 degrees. You'll know how hot that is, and if it's okay with you or not. But carrying this laptop around is not easy. But if you are looking for good, reliable performance for gaming, for photo editing, which is what I did mostly on this machine, for even video work for that matter, the Dell G7 would not disappoint by any means. What's also really nice is that the G7 comes with a Thunderbolt port, which allows you to attach external displays. It allows you to, of course, also connect high-speed external drives. If you look at, for example, the Samsung X5, which is a Thunderbolt-enabled external drive, you can attach that. Thunderbolt does open a lot of possibilities. In addition, there's also a full-size HDMI 2.0 port. There's a display port. There's 3 USB 3.0 ports. So in terms of connectivity, you're not losing anything at all. And that's kind of where the Dell G7 wins out over the Asus, because the ROG Strix 2 does not come with a Thunderbolt port. So there's that. The only reason the Dell G7 loses out to the Asus is because of its keyboard, and it's just a hair short on the performance side of things. But all in all, honestly, you wouldn't notice the performance difference. And while gaming, we did not notice any performance difference. It was only when we looked at the numbers that we saw the variance. So that's a quick review of the Dell G7. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you guys for watching.
For the latest technology updates, subscribe to Digit.in and don't forget to hit the bell icon.